Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
And
this is our fourth session.
it's
Fourth?
our fourth session. It
Fourth
is.
session.
Yeah. So, David, you'd like to tell everybody about who you are?
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is David Robinson. I'm a senior solution consultant for asset management here at ServiceNow. Been with ServiceNow for about 2 years. I'm located on the East Coast of the US, just outside of Philadelphia. And prior to my tenure here at ServiceNow, I was a practitioner on the hardware asset management, software asset management side. So I was doing it. I was working in the automotive industry and helping support our end users at the company and managing laptops and software installs and all that fun stuff. So on the platform. So it was fun to kind of come over to this side and see, kind of under the hood at ServiceNow. And then EAM came about and sort of got my hands, dirty with that. And here we are. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, I like getting my hands dirty too. So I'm Lillian Avilas, and I'm a senior solution consultant for asset management. I'm part of the ITAM team. So some of you are familiar with the hardware, software, and cloud management side of the house. And so now we have enterprise asset management. And I like to say the E is for everything else. So people start to wonder, what are they talking about? What kind of assets? It's anything you spend money on, and that's how I see it. I came from a partner. I've been in the technology industry, let's just say for a very long time, and I love this stuff. So let's continue on. And
Lillian's down in Florida, by the way. She's like, as
yes.
opposed to Patty, who's in Minneapolis. How warm is it there right now? Because it's not warm here.
Well, I'd have to check my thermostat here, but it is 63 degrees, so
Oh,
that's
it's
really cold
so
for us
cold.
now. I wore my long sleeves today. So we'd like to say, the safe harbor notice, just in case, you guys have questions for potential future things, and don't make any decisions based on what may be shared because sometimes things change around here. So David, you want to talk about the agenda?
Yeah, so in today's session, we always start with an overview of kind of what EAM high level. And in this case, we're kind of focusing on work management. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, um, scheduling maintenance plans and why that's important, the benefits around those. Again, plans are a part of EAM. We'll dive into a kind of a hands-on demo. We'll talk about the work management overview, that part of the platform in EAM, go over the maintenance plans and templates, and then the work orders and tasks. And then we've got some Q&A and a little poll at the end, and then we'll talk about stuff that's upcoming. And I'll drop a little teaser here. Upcoming, our next one's going to be OT, which is sort of the hot topic right now. It seems to be kind of coming out of nowhere. So operational technology and EAM. But anyway, that's a preview.
That OTAM.
OTAM.
And so why are we here, David?
So this is really a way for us to get customers and potential customers more involved with EAM. We want your feedback. We want you here to learn and ask questions. There's no bad question here. We all learn together. Sometimes we're sort of the product experts, but from time to time, someone asks a question, and I'm like, no one's ever asked that before, and it's really great to kind of be able to kind of do a deep dive on things like that. So that's why we're here. We want to kind of introduce everyone to EAM and go a little bit deeper around the features of it, bring other people into the fold and get them a little bit more acclimated with the product. And for folks that are using it out there, maybe they'll learn something along the way. So that's kind of why we're here in general. I think I summed that up all right, Lillian.
I think so. And we also offer you that QR code. So if you want to go ahead and put your camera up to that QR code, it'll take you to even more information about EAM and its excellence. Okay, so we have here asset management overall. So David, you want to share something on this?
Yes, we mentioned that kind of in the agenda. So when we talk about asset management, I know we're focusing on EAM today, but we're really focused on asset management as a whole, and our platform covers all of that. Some of you on the call might be familiar with software asset management, hardware asset management, and our cloud cost management, those types of things. But really, the platform is designed for all assets, not just ham and SAM and those things. And we work on that single platform to orchestrate all that work. So you'll see here. We want to make sure that when you're tracking assets and understanding what's happening in the environment from an asset perspective, we have you covered all the way around the spectrum from software, hardware, cloud, and then that enterprise assets, those connected and non-connected assets. And then we want to be able to orchestrate between those actions around those things on the platform. So making sure that IT incidents roll up to, hardware devices and things like that. Onboarding, offboarding, all that stuff works together on the platform because of our data model, and that's the way we sort of view this. So we're talking about EAM today, but realistically, we are a platform company, and Lillian and I are asset people in terms of everything, not just EAM, but we like EAM, so that's what we're talking about today.
That's what we're talking about. And we do better together with all the other products that we have, in-house. So if you have HR or you already have work services, field service, we work better together with that. Okay, so we continue on with, a lot of people are like, well, what is a non-IT asset? I don't even know what that means. So,
Yeah, everything.
everything. We broke this down by industry and also by, the category that it may fall in. So, David, you want to point out
Yeah, so
here?
this list is a bit of an eye chart because of all the things that are listed on here, but anything that costs a company money, anything that's an expense to them, that they have to purchase and manage and maintain, and that could be something as simple as, say, like a chair at a desk, or a desk, or something as complex as, say, I specialize in the manufacturing sector, so something like a conveyor belt that has like multiple sensors and rollers and motors and things like that, or heavy machinery. Think of like a piece of construction equipment that's got to be serviced and maintained, and there's maybe a lease associated with that. So we can manage all of those types of assets, and across all of these different sectors here. And this is just sort of like a taste of, what's out there. But if it's something that someone has paid for or is paying for, and it needs to be tracked and potentially maintained, we can do it on the platform. I'm actually looking at a couple of the other, like the healthcare life sciences, understanding, regulated substances. That's a big one, right? I've worked with customers in the food industry who have like test kitchens, and they want to manage all those test kitchen those items for food safety and things like that, making sure that the allergens are tracked and things like that. So EAM does that. So like I said, this is a huge list here, but it's big because the possibilities are sort of endless with the product, which is awesome.
Absolutely. And the financial concern, how is it going to impact your bottom line? How is it going to affect your employees? What happens if the robot stops working? How does it affect, your end product going out to the consumer? I mean, it's the risks that are involved. You don't want anybody to get hurt on the job. So you want to make sure that all of your assets are functioning, pristine and reliable. So
Lily, my favorite one on that list, I think, is tasers. It's at the
I know there's just so many out there. It's
yeah,
unbelievable. So don't get tased by anybody today.
no,
So,
no.
so here we have we call this the silo environment. So David, tell us what your thoughts are on here.
Yeah, this is like a kind of a spaghetti bowl, right, of all these things happening in the environment. And that's where we can kind of look back at that first slide about all the things happening maybe on the platform, and how we sort of bring these silos together and break them down. With an asset, there's a lot going on here. There's, what do you plan for and how do you acquire it? When you acquire it, how do you maintain it? Is it in a stock room, or is it coming out of a stock room? Where is the asset? These might be in separate systems right now. So maybe you've got a procurement system. Maybe you've got some sort of maintenance system that handles that. Maybe you've got something else like a support system that handles like the decom and disposal. Some sort of help desk system that manages repair, or that kind of thing. And then some separate thing for field service management. EAM brings all of this together so that you don't have to do this in kind of a swivel chair environment. And that's really where the value is in the platform. And not only that, but think about kind of the knock-on effects of all this, not just around the direct asset pieces, but maybe you're hiring somebody and they need a particular piece of equipment. We can automate that from the start from HR, so that when they get to their job site, they've got all the things they need to start working and being a productive worker, whether that's in the field or on a construction site or wherever that may be. That is all unified across the platform. So not only breaking down these silos, but potentially breaking down other silos with other systems as well. That's kind of the benefit of the platform.
Yeah, and how many times haven't you come across, I know I have, where you have people are siloed, where you have Joe's been working for the company for 20 years and he's got it all in his head, and
Hmm.
everybody calls Joe, and Joe knows all the answers, but Joe hasn't put anything down in writing.
Yeah,
So it's really good to make sure you get all the information in Joe's head or whomever you've engaged with, and make sure that your people are not siloed as well.
absolutely.
Yeah, left hand talking to the right hand, right? Okay, so we know everyone has struggles, whether it's enterprise asset management or otherwise. But David, let's talk about some of the struggles we know.
Yeah, if you're managing enterprise assets now, is Excel part of your life? Um,
Yeah.
that's a big one. We see that kind of at the hardware side too, of understanding, where things are. And that's again, we sort of talked about breaking down those silos and understanding those things. So when we talk about breaking down those silos, we've got, that tool that you might be using that's sort of insulated and maybe you're generating reports out of it, or maybe you're updating it manually. That could be Excel, that could be some other tool. And anytime someone does something manually, that induces exposure for risk. So, I'm an IT guy kind of through and through because I came up in that environment. But the same thing holds true with enterprise assets. Imagine um, you're responsible for maintaining enterprise assets and you have to go check an asset back in manually. You have to go change that state and say, no, we brought it back. It's in the stock room, or it needs to go out for repair. And then someone grabs you by the collar and says, hey, I got a problem over here with this other asset that needs to be maintained. Did you write that down on a notepad? And that's where that kind of manual, issue comes into play. We If someone's responsible for actually updating these things manually, you really start to get dust in the system. Kind of things start to slow down, and it causes that exposure, which is like that problem where we don't update things fast enough. Maybe it's not clear exactly what's happening with an asset. So when those things combine, that kind of creates that inertia where it's like we can't move fast enough to get out of our own way. We can't deploy assets fast enough. We can't fix them fast enough because once something happens, we just can't react because we don't have the data at our fingertips. So that's why it's a struggle. That's why, a lot of these companies struggle, larger companies struggle with understanding these things. Lillian used the example of the person who's been at the company for 20 years and has it all in his head. Um,
Right.
you know, he's probably great, or he or she is probably great and super efficient at their job, but they might retire one day. And then that whole manual process goes out the window. So the idea is to take this stuff and put it on the platform so that the workflow is really handling all of this and making sure that the work's getting done in a timely manner, that it's recorded, that it's tracked, that we understand the entire history of an asset. So that's how we get over that sort of manual process, or those repetitive human parts of the system.
Well, back in the day, like the human error, I will admit this, guys. I had an Excel spreadsheet and I learned from it. Now I make a new version before I make any changes in a document. But this particular time in the original document, it had all these formulas and I accidentally deleted the formula. And oh boy, was it a mess. Fortunately, the person who created the document did have, his own carbon copy of it. But I'll tell you what, human error can be very high. And then the compliance, disposing of assets, making sure that, you have certifications of the vendors that you use. And what happens if you accidentally, spill oil in the waters that people drink? These are all things to consider when you're dealing with assets. And many, many times, it's an oversight. People don't realize, what's going on in their environment. So what do we do to help you out? David, tell them more about our ways we're going to
Yeah,
solve our
I sort of
problem.
cheated. I already touched on this a little bit, right? So we
Right.
and I know this kind of breaks it down to, A plus B equals C, but we're going to use that platform. We're going to use the ServiceNow platform to bring those data sets together, to bring all those parts and pieces together, those procurement systems, the field services, all those things. Lillian, you're off of presenter view.
Oh, there you go. I'm sorry about that, guys.
No, it's all right. Um, So we're going to bring those parts and pieces together, and then we're going to automate it. And that's one of the advantages of our platform. So it's not just bringing that data together, but it's about how we take action on it when we need to take action on it. And I always like to say that the workflow is the more important piece, because that is the grease between the gears in the system. That's the thing that makes the efficiency, scalable effectively. Imagine not having to update assets manually. Imagine not having to, understand how a process works every time you go through that process and go, oh, well, I don't know what do I do next. So that's where the workflow really comes into play. So with all those things, we can scale that better. And then we understand exactly, we can maximize that efficiency on the assets because we have a very hyper accurate record of our assets, how much things cost, when they were touched last, where they're located, who they're assigned to, all of those pieces. So we can reduce that risk, and we can maximize the usage of those assets because now we know where they are. We know, for instance, like in the construction industry, if we have a piece of equipment that's sitting idle that we could deploy versus having to buy another one because we have another job coming up, those types of things. Then that's where that kind of comes at scale when we start to bring those other things into play. So that's why, we kind of tout ourselves as, the leader in enterprise asset management around these things. We want to make sure that we have that holistic view of all those things, and not just, like I said, not just the assets, but procurement, disposal, all those other ancillary things that wrap around the asset. They're super important for that life cycle of the asset and then the workflow. So
That's a great segue into the next slide. And yes, there might be some redundancies here, but you have a life cycle. We didn't create the life cycle, by the way. It exists with every asset, but what we did is we created workflows to be aligned with the life cycle of the asset. So, David, you want to touch on this slide here and
yeah, absolutely. So we've already sort of touched on parts and pieces of this, but the idea with the life cycle, that's really sort of the core foundation of enterprise asset management. It's understanding, what you bought, where it is now, has it been maintained or is it being worked on? And then when it's end of life, is it being disposed of? And you can see in this diagram here, we have the now platform in the middle. That's the workflow. So, there might be many, many hands touching these assets because everyone has a different role in the company, functionally, whatever they're doing. The person who's deploying an asset might not be the same person who's maintaining it, but we still want those two people to understand what's happened with those things or what is happening with those things depending on their role. So the idea is that we can take all these processes, put a workflow around them and say, we know that we purchased X amount of assets. They're in this stock room. We're going to deploy them to this location. We've recorded all that. We know exactly chain of custody wise who's handed those things off to everybody. And then we want to operate them. We want to understand, hey, are they operating correctly? One thing we haven't touched on in here is cost of ownership. We do that in enterprise asset management a little bit too, to understand how these things are operating in an environment, how much they cost to maintain, how much they cost from a lease perspective. We have all that data too. And then we want to go through those maintenance plans, those work orders, which we'll touch on a little bit in the demo, and then retire those assets. And that's all workflow driven. The idea is that someone doesn't have to go, what's my next step? The workflow takes that for you and says, okay, now we need to, if we're retiring something, now we need to make sure that we have somebody coming to take that asset away or whatever that is. And it's updating the states on those assets as you go through that process so that there's no question about what's happening with the asset in the process. So that's really, the life cycle is sort of, it's visually represented here, but the workflow is really the thing that drives it. And the idea is that every asset goes through this process. There's assets in all different steps along the way here, but we can see exactly what's happening with those assets as it's going through that process. So, to kind of summarize those 3 bullet points there, we can understand exactly everything that we own at a glance. We can streamline those processes to make sure that the assets are getting to where they have to get, in an efficient way, an efficient manner. They're being retired properly, things like that. And then also reducing things like downtime and, right sizing your fleet or whatever assets you have to make sure you've got the right amount of stuff. So that all mitigates risk too. You don't have excess inventory, reducing downtime in certain instances depending on the product so that you're maximizing the usage of that asset. You're saving money that way because that asset's working more efficiently and working more constantly. So things like that reduce that risk. We could also talk about theft and things like that in this life cycle. We can help kind of track those things and understand, assets that have been lost and things like that too. And we have that chain of custody. So that's kind of EAM in a nutshell. And really the thing that underpins it is really this life cycle.
I'll tell you what, it's a whole lot of caretaking we're doing for your assets, ensuring that your money is spent well and your assets are taken care of. And in that life cycle of the automated life cycle that exists, the management of it, these are some of the items that we have available in the platform. So, David, you want to elaborate on some of these?
Yeah, absolutely. I've already touched on a bunch of these, and these think of these as sort of those silos we talked about earlier, right? Breaking those things down. We've got that control tower of record. That's our workspace. We'll show that a little bit in the demo. That's kind of the high level, what's going on with my assets, right? We're focusing more on work management today, so you'll see that kind of part of it, but that's an overarching theme through the workspace in terms of where are my assets, what are they doing, et cetera. We're going to focus in on the work side of it, but you'll see that. Inventory management, understanding what's in my stock room or what's in my lot. Maybe you're tracking a fleet of vehicles. What's in the lot? What do we have available to use? Work management and maintenance, which you're going to focus on today a little bit, planning out those different things with checklists, the tasks assigned to those technicians, how long those things took, et cetera. That's more of our focus today. We'll show a little bit of that. Procurement management, tying dollars to these assets, understanding where we bought them from, how much they cost, what the total cost of ownership was over the lifespan of it. All of those pieces and of the dollars and cents of the asset too. We want to track those things and keep that together. And then contract management, which kind of ties to procurement too. If you're leasing assets and things like that, understanding warranties, leases, again, those types of things on these assets. All of those contracts are on the assets, because it's not just having the asset. There's all of these financial obligations and things you may have tied to that as well. So that's another thing to consider. And that's, EAM brings all those things together so that you can see them through that control tower. So you understand exactly what's happening with something. And the way it's designed is that no matter which way you're approaching it, so if you are looking at an asset, you can go to the contract. Or if you're looking at the contract, you can see all the assets. That's how we link everything together on the platform. So there's never any question about what belongs where or where it is. And that's sort of the perk of having all this in EAM.
Exactly. So that's great, David. I mean, I love how we can cover every aspect of an asset and keep you informed and have your data aligned. And so today, our primary focus though is going to be on work management, and what work management offers is schedule maintenance, where you get your work orders. And why? Why are we doing this? Well, here are the 10 top items that come to mind. I'm sure there's more out there, but prevent asset failures. How do you do that? Proactive repairs. You want to make sure the asset is safe. Optimize performance. You want the assets to be well maintained. You want them to be at their best performance. We have something called calibration. We're not going to show that today. That'll be another session. But optimize performance. Cost savings. Lower repair costs by having insight into who's working on it. If you're maintaining it, it doesn't break down as much, so you save money. Extend asset lifespan. Having these routine maintenance reduces the wear and tear. Something that a manufacturer will say lasts 5 years. By you taking care of it, it lasts longer. Regulatory compliance. Oh, everybody loves that. Many of the industries out there, we're regulated. We got to stay, within our lane and follow the rules and the regulations. Otherwise, the government is going to fine you. I know that I worked for a company where we had to restrict certain access to certain assets. And in doing that, if somebody had access to the board that was on that particular asset, and obtain data from it, we were fined millions of dollars, and no company wants to pay out that kind of money. What about support, predictive maintenance, well-organized maintenance schedule? It helps you to collect the data so that you can sustain the environment and know what's going on with the asset. Improve inventory management, knowing what you have. Customers are facing where they don't know what they have, they don't know where it is, and they go out and they buy more, and then they find out, oh boy. So yes, this will be, by the way, recorded and uploaded to YouTube. In addition, we have enhanced reputation and reliability. We want to maintain the equipment being reliable. It's so frustrating when you go to use something and it's broken. And then you have to call your manager and say, hey, I can't do my job because it's broken. Well, we want to help you prevent that. Employee productivity and morale. What? What does that have to do with asset management? Well, reliable equipment reduces frustration, increases workers' productivity. Your manager's happy, the employees are happy, everybody's making money. It's all good. And then last but not least is data-driven decision making. You have the ability to gather all of this information, and David mentioned earlier about total cost of ownership.
Mhm.
You can collaborate and bring that information together, take a look at what you're spending, where you're spending it, how much you're spending, and what you're spending it on, and say to yourself, hey, maybe we need to make better decisions. So, while we're online here, feel free to pop in any questions. We are going to have a Q&A at the end that we can address those questions for you. So, David, tell us more about the work management overview. He's going to do a demo. So we're going to switch
Yeah,
gears and then come back to the slides after his.
yeah. Let me. I guess I share my screen at this point, right?
Yes. So go ahead.
Okay. Let me jump into. So we're gonna focus on. Let me do that. Hold on. There we go. Share. All right.
Beautiful. Thank you, David.
You can see my screen.
I sure can.
Excellent. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the workspace, and this is part of it. For those of you that are not familiar with enterprise asset workspace, we're focusing on the work management area, but again, I'll give you a quick overview of the workspaces for those of you who aren't really familiar with it or haven't dived into it too much. Workspaces are relatively new to ServiceNow, and the idea is to bring data forward in a graphical representation of what's happening in the environment. Now, I'm going to go quickly up to just the top page here of EAM, and you can see exactly, all the stuff that's happening from our assets. This is sort of like the air traffic control sort of area here. But when we start to drill into these sub areas here, we get more specific data around what's actually happening from from our asset perspective around that thing. So in this case, we're talking about work management. So let me dive into here again, and we can see exactly what's happening here around these different things. We can see, hey, parts requirements for open orders. If there's an open order and we're working on maybe a maintenance task with that, we might need parts. How many parts are we need for that? And we can drill into any one of these. I'm going to dive into this one real quick, just to kind of show you. It gives you the list here. And I apologize. This is our demo instance, and they only give us one mouse and one wheel. We don't get the full-blown full instance to run these on. But you can see
Yes,
here
yes.
all the parts here that are required, and then what order tasks they're associated with in the environment. So that's kind of like a high level view of those things. Same thing with the other pieces here. Maintenance plans that are active right now. Work order tasks that are unassigned. That's a big one. If you've got work orders that are happening in the environment, we want to be able to make sure they're being assigned and they're being worked. That's part of that sort of uptime, maintenance, service, making sure those things are happening. We can see that kind of at a glance here. We can see, open orders due the next 7 days, none, luckily. Orders due the next 30 days, assets to be maintained in the next 30 days. So that's part of that maintenance schedule we talked about, how many assets are going to have a maintenance, item occur on them in the next 30 days. So this is really just driving that data to the top. It's really showing kind of what's going on there at a high level. And then if you want to kind of drill further, you can. Going down a little bit further here, we can see, kind of some trending data here, active work orders by like priority, low and high. Again, we can filter these out. We can drill into them if we wanted to see a little more data here, but we can see exactly what's going on here. This looks like some fleet data here where we're looking at some Volkswagens and a fleet here. Looks like there's like a checkup, a work order here. So a lot of good data just at your fingertips and kind of easy to get into. And that's the point of the workspace, really. Below that here, some trending here, work orders, per month over the last 12 months. This is a great way to understand, are we balancing our workloads properly? Maybe we've got maintenance and we can shift it around a little bit based upon our resources. So that sort of data-driven decision points that Lillian was talking about earlier. We can kind of see that graphically and understand, hey, June and December seem to be our heavy hitters here. Maybe we do some maintenance a little early. Maybe we do some maintenance a little later. We stretch it out so that, our crews aren't slammed, twice a year. Those types of things. So it's bringing those actions to the top. Those things you go, oh, I never looked at it this way. Maybe we can fix this and make this more efficient.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
what's
oh,
great
good.
about that one on the bottom there that you showed the trending, I use it for actually when I see the peaks and I know it's seasonal and I can't
Mhm.
change the schedule maintenance, I can maybe hire a couple of temps to come in and help
Right.
with the workload. So that's a
Yeah,
good
absolutely.
idea.
So I'm going to focus on, I think we're diving into work orders, right? Lillian, is that our plan here? So
Maintenance plans and work orders,
I,
yes.
I will say too, before I dive into that, you'll see across the top here, there's all these tabs. These are kind of more drilled down into other aspects of work management. So calibrations, like, maybe we have a piece of device that needs to be calibrated on a regular basis. My work, maybe as a technician, I can see the things that are assigned to me. Maintenance plans, we'll talk about that in just a second, but that's like maintaining things on a regular basis. The open work orders, the tasks associated with those work orders, tasks around an asset, templates, checklists. All this is built around that. So all this data is here too. I'm just kind of showing you the lead page, but I'm going to focus actually on the work orders here, and I've already filtered this a bit just for demo speed. I'm actually interested in what's going on with this diesel generator. This particular one, we've got 3 here, and it's inspection time for them, their annual inspections. So we can see here that ones are in draft state. It's not been acted on yet. We can also see that there's 2 here that are signed. I'm going to jump into this one in Texas. Here we go. And we can see all of the items associated with this work order here. So this is an annual inspection, but we can also see, hey, all the subtasks that are associated here. We can drill even further into these too and see like here's the tasks that are done for the inspection, check power, command control, etc. We can see all of those things. We can also see on a global scale or a global work order thing, all the checklist items that are associated with it, all the things that have to be done by that technician as they're going through this. These are associated with the tasks. So I believe actually all these items, Lillian, are associated with the 3rd step here, which is I think it's this one.
Yes, I
This is backwards. This is backwards order, but 7, 8, and 9.
do.
Yeah, that's actually here. That's actually the inspection. But there's also some two other pieces here. We also have part requirements for this inspection process. So we need this voltage regulator. We need this command control here. We can see if they've been requested, they've been sourced, etc. We can see all that data. We can also see. Speaking of source data here, we can see that request for the parts here. Looks like Bob Techie is or it's requested for. Lillian opened it because she's on top of her stuff here. That parts request for that item that we need, and then we can also see that this pulls in. Speaking of that sort of better together story in our single data model and our awesome platform, we can bring in knowledge around those assets. So this asset's in the system as a model, and we can tie knowledge records to that. So here's all the requirements, for the testing and calibration for this device, the ISO standard for calibrating this generator. That data is right here for the technician to take a look at as they're doing that maintenance, going, okay, I want to make sure I'm calibrating this right and making sure it's, as I do the maintenance, it's within spec. Here are the specs. There's no secondary, where do I get that? Where do I find that? So just a lot of data right in the work order right off the bat. I'm going to jump into one of the tasks and show you how that works. I think I'm going to do, we'll do the voltage regulator check here. Now I'm going to jump into this and you'll see here, I'm in as admin and you'll see a couple of things here, but one thing I can't do, I'm not cool enough to do the work task, even though I'm admin, but you'll see all the specifics here, who it's assigned to, what type it is, has it been accepted? Bob accepted this. He's gonna work on it. Scheduling, we can schedule like the planned time for it to be worked on. We can also see activity in here too, who it's been assigned to, when things changed, etc. So in this instance, I can't do this, but Bob Techie can. So I'm actually going to impersonate Bob Techie.
You gotta love demos.
Yeah, actually, I can get it right here from my work. I should be able to. Do I not have this here? I never jumped in as Bob. Shame on me. Demo pre-prep here. Let's go to.
Let me go into the work orders. And which
Oops,
work order are you in again?
I'm not. I have to find that work order. Is this filtered? This might be filtered. Let me.
You went into the one that's
Oh,
assigned.
created by. That's why.
There you go.
Check your filters, everybody.
Yes, always do that.
Oops. Can I do clear here?
Okay, I believe you're working on a 10153 is the work order.
Yeah, my filter is not being nice to me here.
Well, let's go into the work order tasks. and you'll see
Yep.
10153.
101. Oh, let's do it here.
Yeah. And this is a good way you go in and it contains 10153.
There we go.
There it is.
All right. So I'm actually going to click start work. I'm Bob. I'm at the site. I'm going to do my my thing here. This is the
It's a diesel generator annual.
yeah. I just wanted to double check here. I'm on the right one. Is this the full inspection? Let's see here.
Yeah, it's got the checklist and everything. So when you start the work, you also want to start your timer because that is applied to the total cost of ownership. So you'll see here that it's work in progress.
Yep. There's your state change, and that's part of that workflow doing its thing. Here's actual work start. And I'm going to go to checklist items. And I'm going to be, for sake of time, I wouldn't do this if I was servicing a generator, but I'm going to mark complete. You'll see here the completed date comes in here. The workflow recorded that I, as Bob Techie, did all that work. So again, that kind of, you had that great chain of custody there too. So is there ever a question of like who did what? You know, because they said they did it. So no question there about, you know, what's happening from a work perspective. Let's see, what else do we have to do here? I think that's it. You'll see here too in the activity stream, it has all of that data. So you can come back later and see that as part of the activity stream, which is a great kind of feature here, kind of at a glance. I'd be a little suspicious because it looks like Bob did everything at once, you know, within a second. But you have that data.
And so a question that was thrown at me one time was, what happens if there's a false on the checklist? Out of the box, there is no logic behind them, but you can create whatever logic you want. So if the technician decided to, one didn't work, maybe they checked the fan belt and the belt was broken, you can go ahead and when he does false, generate another work order off of that and keep track of everything that's happening within the work order. So. And then, of course, you can change the time as David's doing, and then that gets applied to the total cost of ownership, keeping track of labor. And labor is also tracked by what type of technician they are. You might have an internal charge against that technician based on his experience. And so Bob is our top of the line technician here. So go ahead, David.
I'm going to hit close complete here because I'm done.
All right.
Close successfully.
Wonderful. So the next question is how does this all come to be? So it's my turn again. I'm going to go
Yeah,
and
Lillian, before you share, I want to just flip
uh-huh.
back to the other view that we were looking at originally. And I
Okay.
just want to show how that looks like from an admin side. I think it's valuable.
Absolutely.
Let me jump here. Come on. See if it remembered my filter. I bet it didn't.
This is where you have the fun part when you're doing demos and go
Yeah,
according to
let's
plan.
see.
So that was 10153.
What was the work order? Was it
The work order task was 10153, and the work order was 10694.
We'll check on that real quick. What I wanted to show was that we only did a piece of it. So the rest of it's still open. We can see it's now work in progress here. Let me go into this work order here. There's 3 work order tasks, but you can see that Bob did his part. And the other 2 are waiting to be accepted. So we have to talk with Arnold and be like, when are you coming out? What's going on? Are you being delayed? So I just wanted to point that out because I think it's good to show that, yeah, I did part of it, but this work order isn't closed yet. And that's trackable, which is really valuable. So you can understand that there's multiple people involved with this. That's part of that process of understanding, what's actually happening with these assets as they get maintained or whatever the process or the work order is. We can see exactly all those bits and pieces. So that's it. I just wanted to show that as kind of that completion. Lillian,
No,
I'll let you take the ball.
I think that's great because here you'll see Arnold might be more qualified to do the other work order task, whereas Bob Techie may not. And that's where you might want to consider who are you assigning this to. So I'm
Yep.
going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so David just went over the work order management, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and show you about the template, show you about the maintenance plan, how it comes and it's triggered. This is the workflow that happens after the schedule plan is triggered. It creates the work order, and then it is assigned and completed, as David has just shown you. Okay. I'm going to go first into the maintenance plan and show you how that is put together. And then it's going to show you through that process how the work orders are come to be. And then David showed you the work order task. So let me go ahead and stop sharing this. And let me go into my instance. Okay, can everybody see my instance here? Okay, so under work management, we have here the maintenance plans. Now, before we get into the creation of the maintenance plan, you always want to start off with, do I need to have checklists, which are a series of questions available? Do I need to have calibration as part of this maintenance plan? And in creating the template, I'm just going to show you a quick snapshot view of you can have as many tasks as you want within a maintenance plan. You identify the work type as planned maintenance, but we also have others that are triggered through this. And here you'll see it could be a break fix, which is known as an ad hoc. It could be an install of an asset, or it could be just strictly a calibration. And these are the work order types that will be created once this template is utilized within the maintenance plan. You also have the ability to set up task skills, identify the parts. Here you'll see the voltage regulator. You'll also see down here, we have the power command control, and you'll see that there's a task for each one that David showed you in his preview. And then this one here is just the checklist itself. And you go ahead and you save that, and that checklist becomes part of the maintenance plan. So now I'm going to go into the diesel generator maintenance plan here. And the logic behind this is first you want to say what assets are going to be targeted for this environment. You want to go and you would identify the assets as being maybe it's a particular location, maybe the display name needs to contain this, maybe the field might be an asset tag or a serial number. Whatever field may be in that record, you can condition the filter to be applicable to the assets that will be affected by this. Okay. Then you go into the maintenance schedule. When you open up the maintenance schedule, you want to identify when is this going to happen. So we have different types of triggers. Right now, what you're seeing here is a duration where I have identified annually in the month of August. It's going to go off at 7 a.m. However, I can have a lead time. So maybe the first day of August here is what I've chosen. If I would put like, let's say a number 2 here, it would then be triggered 2 days before, allowing the technician to maybe prep and get the parts necessary before he actually goes out and does the work. The different type of durations are metered, conditioned, by script, duration, or meter. And when we talk about meter, what do we mean by that? That means we're identifying a specific field in that particular record for that asset that would be the trigger to set this off. And then we would say every how many days it would happen. If you find that you need a script because there's a little bit more involved in the specificities of the asset, you can control it by a script. You could also control it by conditions. And the set conditions, again, would be what fields within that record for that asset are you going to filter out to make sure that only those assets are affected by this maintenance schedule that you've put together. And then I mentioned earlier about the work order template. So the template that was created in the prior screen that I showed you, here is where you would see and can go into, you have which one I chose, and that's this one here, which is the diesel generator annual inspection. So once I've chosen that, I go back to the details and I see here, based on that template and based on the schedule that I've created for the assets that I've chosen, here are three of the maintenance plans that are going to take place. They're going to be inspected, and then it creates work orders for them. And then it creates the tasks of them. Now, in the maintenance schedule, if I wanted to, once I've identified the assets, I associate those records with this schedule. Let's say there's an emergency and I need to pull the trigger and run on demand. I have that option as well. So I go ahead and I click run on demand. And in doing so, I will see that more work orders will be created, and this is where they will show up. Okay, so we're at 10 minutes to the hour. And so this basically is how, under work management, you can go in and create your templates, identify the checklists that you would want to use. And here you'll see I have the diesel generator standard checklist. And this is where I created all of those questions that David was so graciously able to complete and get the work order done. Okay. So with that said, we're going to go back to the slides. Does anybody have any questions?
Lillian, one thing I want to chime in on was you're talking about the meter
Yes.
aspect of the one thing that we can do on the platform is you can reference off a field. Well, like in the case of a generator, you may want to do maintenance based upon hours. Well, if we have a way to monitor that generator and bring that data in, its current hour count, we could actually put logic around that and say, okay, um, every you know every 100 hours we need to run a maintenance on this or something along those lines. That's what that
Exactly.
meter field is, and we don't talk about it a lot, but that interconnectivity is really cool, and we can link to those systems and then kind of kick off those workflows based upon things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, here, if I open up this field here, you'll see where we can choose whatever field that you want. And like David was saying, we want to find out, for instance, mileage. So for the vehicle, you might want to find mileage. So let's see here. Okay, well, this particular asset doesn't have mileage. Why? Because it's a diesel generator.
Yeah.
So if I was showing you a vehicle, then that field would pop up, and then we would identify maybe every 7,500 miles, a work order would be triggered, and the technician can go and take care of that particular vehicle. So we're going to go back to letting you know that we have in February, yes, we have OT and EAM better together. And what would you like to know more about it? Well, come and join us in February. 18th is when we're going to do that. And we're having a gentleman joining us by the name of Stephen.
From
So
the OT team.
from the OT team, that's right.
Lillian, your bar is still visible at the top there. Just want to cutting off the slide a little bit.
Oh, don't you hate when that happens? Let's see, you know why? Somebody just sent me a message. So here we go.
Don't they know you're busy?
Don't they, I don't think they know that. So that can be problematic, right? And so here we have again on February 18th at 12 noon. We've changed the time from 11 o'clock. So for those of you who are enjoying lunch or maybe having your cup of joe, or it's the end of the day for you, come join us on February 18th. And just want to thank you all for your time today. And thank you for watching EAM Hotline.